And then our final director is Tommy Fulcher, who agreed to step over, being mindful of the fact that we need to enrich the leadership team. This might mean you in 2 years. It's really time for people to start thinking about keeping this organization going beyond the next 2 years, when some of us will naturally need to step back a little bit. So Tommy is the director for candidate recruitment, support, and fundraising, which is what he and I spent the vast majority of the end of 23 and the early part of 24 doing. So we already have identified even possibly statewide candidates that we already know. And but our first order of business is the municipals. As the municipals coming up, go to your municipality website, see who's up, see what's open, and start thinking about it yourself or talking to your friends. So April had, I thought it was 9, but it was really only 7. We had 7 different events in April, and I was really looking forward to all of us being able to take a little breather, but no, because already we have 6 different events calendared in May, and we know that 5051, that conglomeration of organizations that includes Indivisible, that they will be calling for some kind of show up and protest, and we'll be on that too, whatever dates they come up with. Know though that sometimes we don't have complete information, because if we only get the date a week in advance, we have to get permits, we have to pay, we have to be Mary Kelly and spend an entire afternoon among various, hey Jonah, among various people who could give us permission to park before they'd sign off on our crowd permit for tomorrow. But please, I hope any of you who are around can join us tomorrow. We're trying to turn kind of inward and person to person, peer to peer in our community. And it is in conjunction with the 5051 May Day protests, but ours is a vigil for the people, a May Day reflection of, help me.
Resistance to
That's the last one. It's reflection, resilience, and resistance. See, it's so new, I didn't memorize it yet. But we have candles, and we have Reverend Gay Morris coming to speak for about 10 or 15 minutes to help us understand, you know, how our voices matter, but also to help us remember who we're marching for when we march down Bonnet Street and form a circle with our candles on the beach. And if anybody knows someone with a drone, hit me up, because we've tried 3 or 4 people. We'd love to get a drone shot to share. That is kind of our party update. Here's what you can look forward to: a newsletter probably tomorrow in a revamped format, a book group that I finally am able to have the bandwidth to start. There'll be a form in there where if you're interested in keeping together during the summer when the traffic is bad and we're not having as many events, a book group is a really good way to do it. And already my friend Spalding, I always want to call you Spalding Gray, Spotswood Graves, sorry, is already talking with me about books. And so I think, but it doesn't have to be just one. So if a lot of people are interested, we can organize book groups maybe regionally too, to make it a little bit easier to get to when all our visitors are here supporting our economy. And finally, if you have an idea for our program, please let me know. Susan Sawin at Gmail, or Dare Dems at Gmail, either one. I think this is also a period where we're going to learn a lot, probably going to learn a lot sometimes on our own. I deep dive on Wikipedia all the time. I deep dive in the news. And if you have something that you're learning about and you think would be valuable for other people, let us know and we'll work you into a program and you can share what you're learning with everybody else. I think that was it. Oh, no, it's not. We have a special guest this evening that would like to say a few words. So let me introduce our newest district court judge in the 1st Judicial District, Judge Wells.
Promise I'll be quick. I know our speaker's here. Just in case you haven't met me, I'm Jenny Wells. I'm the newest district court judge. I was appointed in March, but I do have to run for election next year. So I'm ready. There's a couple of deep pocket Republican candidates who I'm hearing are probably going to run against me, so I want to get the ball rolling right now and start getting the word out. So I've got, we're officially official. I've filed everything I need to do. We've got a bank account now, so we're up and running. We are having a big Dare County kickoff event at Swelsa on May 12th. So it's all over Facebook, it's all over Instagram. If you don't follow me on there, please do. It's Keep Judge Jenny Wells on both platforms, so I'm really easy to find. I also have flyers about the Swelsa event here. If anybody has a place of business that will let you put them up, or if anybody's interested in taking some of those, I've got tons of those. I've also got donation cards here because it's not cheap to have an event at Swelsa. So I would really appreciate anything, and thank you so much in advance. I hope to see everybody there.
Go Jenny.
Okay, awesome.
All right, without further ado, our speaker is here, looking a little road weary, but his charming self. Let me introduce you to the first vice chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party. He's heading into his second term in that position. And he and the rest of the team, but especially he and Anderson, were out there knocking doors and meeting people all over the state in 2024. And I'm really glad that he is hitting us up early, and I hope he'll come back later. So without further ado, Joan.
For our Zoom folks, camera right there.
No, we're posting on YouTube.
Okay,
But
cool.
not publicly, it's a private.
Got it.
Recording for now.
Y'all, I'm Jonah Garson. I'm the first vice chair of our state Democratic Party. I'm an attorney and organizer, former voter protection director. Here's how I like to do these talks, subject to y'all's input to me. So I would like to begin by doing sort of a brief overview of the past 2 years, talk about the Riggs litigation specifically, answer questions about the Riggs litigation while people have them in mind, and then talk about the year to come and the years to come. Does that sound good? Thumbs up. Okay, great. So thank you all for having me. Thank you all for being there. I'm on the road from Bertie County, where we have a new Bertie County party chair and sort of a generational shift, which is very exciting for Bertie County. And I will tell you, Bertie County was a bright spot in eastern North Carolina. They flipped 2 county commissioner seats, making them a county with all Democratic electeds. And they got a woman on the county commission. It was an all-male commission before. And they also happen to have a chair who is a town commissioner of a small 500-person town of, I think, Powellsville is what it's named. And she is also the first openly black trans woman council member and party chair. And folks know about it. And folks know in Powell, and she is in her second term, having been reelected, and it is what it is. Camille Taylor, she's super cool. So I thank you all for having me. I was in Perquimans County last week, but then I had to make a beeline back across the state to Allegheny County as all of us crisscross for our county conventions. So 2-3 years ago, end of 2023, Anderson, Clayton, myself, we were county party chairs. And we watched going into, I guess, end of 2022, right? So we watched going into the 22 election cycle, a sort of slow motion disaster. And November 2022 hits, and we've lost control over the North Carolina Supreme Court. And what that means in losing control of a democracy-forward Democratic majority over that Supreme Court, I think most of y'all here know. It means that we go from having a court that sees partisan and racial gerrymandering as unconstitutional under our state constitution to having a extreme partisan court under Chief Justice Newby that is willing to reverse the court, reverse itself within months, essentially, and say, you know what, no, partisan gerrymandering is fine. What did we lose when we lost a court that was willing to unrig democracy in this state? Well, we went from a fairly evenly split congressional delegation to one that is not evenly split at all, okay? If we had that court in place, if partisan gerrymandering was still deemed unconstitutional, we would be in control of the U.S. House right now. The North Carolina delegation would be the margin. That's what we lost. We also lost a court that was willing to protect North Carolinian rights and values. We lost a court that saw a provision of our state constitution for sound basic education for all students as meaning something. We lost all of that. And so we were frustrated, and I was frustrated. I came of age working as a little intern at the General Assembly in 2010 when Democrats, failing to pass redistricting reform, failing to see the writing on the wall with Citizens United coming down that summer of 2010, sort of stood back and let this sort of huge partisan backlash from President Obama's victory, they just let it go by, and they lost control of the General Assembly to rig our maps such as they are in the first instance. And then when Democrats, cried foul, they turned around and said, well, Democrats did it to us for decades, so come at us. But Democrats lost that last clear shot. And I never thought that we would be here 15 years later with things still as they are. But we saw this and we were deeply frustrated because we knew that other battleground states like your Wisconsins, your Georgias, your Michigans, your Minnesotas, that they had been forging ahead, especially over the past decade, and that they had learned some hard-learned lessons and incorporated them and built strong year-round organizing programs. Georgia has sort of been all over the place. Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, all fairly stable. And we were frustrated that North Carolina was not taking those hard-learned lessons itself. And on a national stage, we were sort of seen as a joke of a battleground state. We weren't seen as a serious contender. And so, and more than that, we had occasional Democratic Party leadership that would talk to grassroots and donors and say, hey, mixed outcomes, it was, we left it all on the field, when those of us who were in the field and on the ground knew that that was far from the case. We did not leave it all in the field. And folks, whether they're donors or grassroots, dislike being gaslit and aren't fools as a general proposition, and don't like being, even if they are fools, don't like being treated like fools. And so we ran as a reform-minded board, each of us individually, wanting to build a modern battleground state Democratic Party capable of throwing a punch intelligently and capable of fighting and winning some of the toughest fights in the field, at the ballot box, and in the courtroom. And it was hard. When we came in, almost all staff had been laid off and there was no money in the make. And you might say, well, that sounds extraordinary, and I would offer to you that it is not extraordinary. In fact, it is very ordinary. In fact, if you looked at most of the parties right now across the country, that's the position they're in. Why? It's because we haven't invested in organizations for decades. And we've had a boom and bust cycle of investing in candidates, and we expect different long-term results every time for that short-term resourcing, short-term thinking. And we haven't seen the investments from the national level into state and local units either. That's a long story. There's a long history behind that, going back to 1968. It's a fascinating history. But yeah, what it meant was that every 2 years, every 4 years, the party folded. Everyone would be let go. All the talent would go. All the money would go. And then rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So we come in, and frankly, it feels like times 3 chipmunks in a trench coat. No staff, no money in the bank, trust exercise. I mean, how do you address that credibility deficit when you've been telling folks, hey, we're doing just fine, we're doing just fine, when everyone knows that that's not true. Even the most casual political observers of North Carolina. And we go to work, and we very slowly, over the course of 2023, begin to fundraise. Led by Chair Anderson Clayton's sort of prodigious talent on the fundraising front and comms front. and we begin recruiting for local candidates. We begin doing tough work of recruiting 120 state legislative candidates. Not 100, 168 out of 170 state legislative candidates. And slowly we build a program that has a serious legal shop led by Kat Lawson, who is our voter protection director and then some. She's our coordinating counsel, coordinating all the law firms working on the things. A comm shop, an organizing shop, a permanent organizing program modeled after Wisconsin's and Michigan's, called Project 100 for North Carolina's 100 counties, with a permanent 6-person full-time staff, the state divided up into regions, and with each region a regional organizing director whose job it is to treat the volunteer county party infrastructure as client, and to make sure that the local organizing imperatives are being met, and to make sure that we have good local messaging. That infrastructure is expensive. We are one of 2 state parties right now that has an organizing infrastructure that is left standing after 2024. Yeah, I mean, it's shocking. That's less a testament to us maybe, but more a testament to the dismal state of affairs for a Democratic Party, right? So we end 2024 with this legal shop, a comm shop, a digital shop, an organizing shop, and we're able to, in 2024, fill in all the pockets of the state where the Harris-Walz campaign refuses to go, which is over half of the state. And we're able to make sure that the Harris-Walz campaign keeps very certain basic commitments regarding down ballot literature and messaging. I mean, very basic, but we're talking in recent history, no commitment to some commitment, a commitment that we have to heavily police, which is to say every single Friday we get on the phone to do spot checks to make sure that folks are doing what they're supposed to be doing across the state. And through grinding it out, and I think a lot of hard work collectively, especially among those county parties like this one that are committed and wired to direct voter contact work, which is everything. We were able, along with Wisconsin, to take one step into some pretty adverse wind in the opposite direction. And it's hard to treat 2024 like a success. Relative to the other battleground states, North Carolina performed well. We got 5 out of 10 on the executive council. We're the only state that flipped 2 statewide executive positions. That's Rachel Hunt flipping lieutenant governor, Mo Green flipping state superintendent. You could say that both of the opponents were terrible candidates. I would say that Hal Weatherman was relatively normal relative to the rest of the crazy. But y'all, I think we live in relative times where we were able to, I mean, the sweetest victory, we were able to bring Justice Allison Riggs across the line by 734 votes. And for those folks here who have people in their lives who gripe about doing direct voter contact work, and who talk about the lack of efficacy of that work, or the tedium of that work, you can tell them that, I mean, that we absolutely do not get that. We do not get that 734 vote win without a ton of field work in places like Dare County, in places across eastern North Carolina, with then a huge chase and cure operation of provincial ballots after the fact. We did not have a victory secured on election night. We had to cure a lot of provisional ballots across the state and scramble with our civil society partners, organizing with them to get it done. We have now, and I'll get into this in a second when I talk about the Riggs litigation, this race has been thrice confirmed, right, at this point. It will be confirmed some more, but we also did that. Can't tell you how big of a deal it is to have a Jeff Jackson in the AG post right now. Not just blocking the worst of the worst from the Trump administration, but also, frankly, doing a ton of due course work of the AG shop, very little of which is actually getting coverage right now. What gets coverage is the opposition work to the Trump administration, not the work on predatory landlords and the opioid crisis, all that other stuff, right? And we see a lot of local wins. And we see wins that we're not expecting, including Lindsay Prather in Western North Carolina, who was supposed to be drawn out of her district when it was re-gerrymandered, but who immediately after Helene stayed on doors and acted as a direct services intermediary, connecting people up with the stuff they needed to recover from the hurricane, and won that district, and won by an impressive margin given how gerrymandered it was. But we did break the supermajority, right? Eastern North Carolina, Dante Pittman, black guy from Wilson, wins a district that also goes for Trump. And he does that through hyper-localized messaging. Doesn't just talk about public ed in the abstract, talks about the gym roof that's fallen down, right? So we're now an organization with a 22-person staff. We kept the entire team together, and it is as large as it's ever been, and we're the third largest party in the country. And right now, we're doing things that we have never done before. We're looking at the 1,700 plus local races up in the odd year, not the off year, but the odd year, across the state, tiering them out in priority counties and figuring out what level of resources we can assign to each and how we get those resources into the hands of those local candidates who need them. We're thinking about how do we keep a direct voter contact operation going year round, not just around those local races, but on TILIS and GOP congressperson accountability. And how do we stay out there, stop talking about candidates and start talking about voters individually and about issues and about cuts to programs that all of us consider important. And so that's where we are. Judge Walls, is it? Wells? Judge Wells, there's a judicial caucus that exists for the first time within the party whose only purpose, led by Becca Zirkin as our director, is to make sure all of our judicial candidates, it began with just the appellate bench, now we're looking at trial judges, that all judges have bundles of resources to run and win in their districts. Guys, this might sound basic. There was no there. And like, again, when we stepped in 2023, throw a dart at a map of Eastern North Carolina, there was no county party there. There was a lot of folks who had been aging leadership in Eastern North Carolina who had been trying before 2020 to pass the torch for a while. And honestly, the pandemic was a coup de grace for those organizations. I mean, they didn't exist. And so it's been a rebuild, which is why it is so exciting to come from a place like Bertie that significantly boosted its voter contact in 2024. Flipped 2 county commissioner seats, and now has a generational transition underway. And we're seeing it across the state. I mean, Western North Carolina, a lot of you, I think, have probably seen a New York Times infographic, which in a sea that shows the United States in a sea of red arrows, showing all the places there was a GOP word shift, a right word shift. And if you look at Western North Carolina in that infographic, you see a sea of tiny little blue arrows. We believe in what we're building. We believe in building a party that is honest about what is possible and honest about what isn't, and that doesn't BS folks about the odds. And we won't get it right all the time. But we're trying, and we are not going back to the way it was before. as an organization. One of the things that we were able to pull off, one of the things that we were able to do is build what I believe to be the best democratic lawyering operation in the country. Not at some fancy Elias firm, not based in DC at one of the big firms, but here in North Carolina, led by a woman named Kat Lawson. And the brain trust that is Kat Lawson, Justice Allison Riggs, some attorneys at these outside firms, but Kat Lawson essentially acting as our chief legal officer, coordinating the 3 different law firms, former Clinton Solicitor General Seth Waxman, making sure that there was a concerted legal strategy to prevent the GOP from overturning our state Supreme Court election and running a test case effectively here, because that's what it was, a test case. This was not Judge Griffin's litigation. This was litigation that was all but foisted on him by the GOP, and it was a play that the Trump legal team did not need to run in 2024 because their victory was secured. But there was always a plan to challenge the Hava and Uwakava voters and a post-election challenge. Always the plan. Why North Carolina? Why make this the test case? Well, we have a state legislature that is extremely powerful, can do a bunch of rigging ahead of time. No matter who's in control in North Carolina, there's probably a constitutional imbalance. The legislature's far too powerful relative to the other branches of government. It's probably something that, to the extent we ever have a stable functioning democracy in the state, probably should be visited, right? That's number one. But number two, they know that our objective number one is to get justices back on that Supreme Court to unrig democracy. They know that if we maintained a Democratic majority, there would be a U.S. Speaker of the House right now in DC. And so they're going to match us blow for blow in this fight. Began with Riggs. We're moving on to the Justice Earls fight at the same time right now. And then in 2028, 3 of their justices are up on the court. And that's when we take it. In December, after we had done the chase and cure work of provisional votes to get Allison Riggs a secured 734 vote margin, we were in the throes of litigation. No days were being taken off by staff. And we were starting to get the price tag and information about the price tag. And we very quickly learned that this would be millions of dollars. And we very quickly learned that there would be no money coming to us from on high, like manna from heaven, that we would have to do it ourselves, and that we would have to take no breaks if we were to both keep the organization we built intact and to fund a $2.8 million litigation. So everyone worked through the holidays. Justice Riggs' team, our team. DNC, we kept asking for money. Turns out there was no money to be had for this in any significant amount. And we also took some risks in December. One of those risks, and one of the frankly controversial things we did, and y'all haven't, at this point I've shifted into the Riggs segment, and I promise we'll break for questions before I continue in a second, but one of the things we did in December, which was controversial, like among us, and we talked about it a lot, was we proactively sued. We brought another one of the 4 lawsuits in federal court where we were plaintiff, and where the Board of Elections, our very good Board of Elections, who we were relatively issue interpretation aligned with, was the defendant. And we did this because in gaming it out, we came to understand that the quickest way and most efficient way to ensure federal court oversight of the federal constitutional issues at play that the state court was so assiduously working to avoid, things like due process, things like that you might, that we needed that expeditious right of review. And so we did that. We added that into the mix. And since then, in the months since then, it has been punching and punching and punching in the courtroom with some of our best litigators, both here, two North Carolina law firms, Wilmer Hale in DC, which is the law firm that you might know is not on the capitulation list, that is in fact leading the fight and making the capitulating law firms like my first law firm look terrible. So we've been winning. And Judge Griffin continues to lose and lose and lose and lose. And the sweetest, most recent victories is the state Supreme Court, in the face of immense public pressure and sort of a number of internal like strategic moves that were documented and where we were forecasting where we were going with the litigation, the federal courts from there. They unanimously said all those HAVA voters, all of the in-state voters, the 60,000 that we're challenging, no, that's off the table. Those folks are fine. That was a huge victory. If y'all followed our, I'm guessing most of you got the press release and saw, I mean, we didn't frame it as a victory. That was strategic. We immediately then focused on, the military and overseas voters. That's who's left? Okay. Yeah. And so we immediately pivoted there and said, the court wants to disenfranchise these folks. And then the dominoes of our federal court play then fell as we expected them to fall, including most recent victory, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals staying any cure efforts, any remedial work to do shit with ballots and registrations of military overseas work that there needs no doing with, right? Because these folks did nothing wrong. And that's our position. I mean, we're teed up and ready to go. Our Guilford County Chair, Katie Kirkpatrick, had an army of organizers ready to go working a caseworker model to go through to go to the residences of the folks from overseas and military who are voting into Guilford County the day of her convention, the hour after her convention, and begin going household by household through that.
Nice.
We didn't have to do that, but we were ready to go. We wouldn't have been able to do that. We would not have been able to have the contingency planning in place, much less the legal strategy that obviated the need for us to run that play without an organization that had. There's a lot of grassroots energy right now. I don't need to tell you all that. I would just ask that you all act as ambassadors for a North Carolina Democratic Party. Just say whatever your gripes are with the brand, it means something. We are defining what it means in a real way, not a bullshit way, to be a North Carolina Democrat. And give some teeth to it. And tell folks why they would, in this time of terrible emergency where our judiciary is half collapsed, that's how I feel as an attorney, where folks are looking for their highest and best use, looking for a place a home for their civic engagement and talents, make the case that it's here. You don't make the case, if you don't want to, that it's the Democratic Party generally. Just say, it's here. It's Dare Dems. It's a state party that's not going to bullshit you and that is going to help put you to work doing the work that matters. That's not going to tell you that all of the work that you do or writing postcard to X place necessarily actually is a thing that moves the needle. Or it's not going to bullshit you as an individual, like looking to find that highest and best use and civic purpose and for meaningful action. Anyway, so here we are. I didn't mean to give that little sort of capstone on my ridge spiel. I'm gonna hold now, because I want to take questions about the litigation, because there's a lot to it. And folks generally have questions. Anything? Yes, Judge?
What happened today? There was something that happened today.
Today, and Kat Lawson was blowing up my phone to the extent I had service in Washington County as I was driving here. I believe that the Court of Appeals, so another big victory that we got, that we weren't responsible for as the state party attorney team, but rather Josh Stein's legal team was that our, in one of their predictable power grabs, the state legislature had said to our very good Board of Elections, all right, listen, we're dismantling you, we're putting election administration under the state auditor's office. Thank you. And we won, when I say we, I mean Democrats generally, was not our legal work. Democrats, the same week we got the stay from the Fourth Circuit, a bipartisan panel of Superior Court judges in Wake County said, no, the power to oversee elections, I don't know our state constitutional wording by heart, that is vested in the governor, so no, you can't dismantle the Board of Elections in this way. Well, today, the Court of Appeals, from what I understand, said we're not going to stay. We are not going to, you're going to have to start the process of moving stuff to the auditors. That's what I understand, but again, I was in deep Washington County and getting smoke signals from Cat Lawson from the other side of the state. So that's what I believe happened today. And we knew blow by blow how this was likely to work out. We still think that for all of these legislative power grabs, there are enough conservatives in this state who believe in the state executive power, and including former GOP governors who will go to bat like they've gone to bat before, and argue that no, legislature, you're powerful enough. Listen, our governor just got the veto in I think at the early 90s. It is not, you know how many executives we independently elected in this state instead of giving to them as governor's appointees? Now, this sort of endless legislative power grab, endless collection of power to itself, there has to be a limit, sort of in a general sense. But when it comes to Board of Elections specifically, our state constitution has something very specific to say about the governor's role. I think that's what happened. I'll feel silly if that's not at all. No, it was good. This is why I'm here, is to be put on the spot. Other questions? Yes, sir.
The counting is staying, you said.
Yeah.
So
we don't even have the count. Well, so the curing is stayed. We don't even have a count of the people who would be cured. There's a fight over who are the subject voters, who are the military and overseas voters who are subject to all this. So.
But my question was, it stayed pending what?
Stayed pending the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, our United States Court of Appeals, making a final decision on the merits. Essentially, right now it goes back to Judge Myers, who was a UNC faculty member. I don't know if anyone here has UNC law, but Judge Myers was a Trump appointee. Judge Meyer, it goes back to Judge Meyer, and then it goes to the Fourth Circuit. We are just going to assume that it's going to go up to the Fourth Circuit, but nothing can happen in the process between now and then. We weren't, as of that Thursday, when this all came down, we were still waiting on the Board of Elections to open up a portal where people would be able to submit documentation and spell out whom, and also what the cure process was. We have neither of those things in place right now. So it's not, even if a switch was flipped and you're saying it's go time, there would be still several steps between us and doing a thing out there. Yes?
You mentioned things were unconstitutional, how much power
Yeah.
they have and stuff like that. But yet, when the gerrymandering came about, that was unconstitutional, and yet they still went about it. Because they said districts cannot, or counties cannot be divided, and we were divided. So things are happening that are unconstitutional.
So we had deeply unfair maps coming out of the 2010 route. When Democrats lost in 2010 in the redistricting year, every 10 years there's a census taken, we redraw the maps as a matter of course. The way our Constitution works right now, the party in control draws the maps. The legislature draws the map, but what that means is the party in control draws the maps. So Democrats have been in control for a long time, and occasionally they had let Republicans into the process, but Democrats before 2010 were guilty of a lot of gerrymandering. And what they didn't have in the same way prior to 2010 is technology and sort of big data aids to get more sophisticated with that work. But you also had democracy forward Democrats like my boss in the state legislature, who was like telling leadership all the time and trying to introduce bills to make independent redistricting commissions or bipartisan redistricting compromise, all that. You had a bunch of good governance Democrats who were all the time raging against, this system, which was not small d democratic. So I don't want it to make it seem like there weren't champions for democracy in the Democratic Party. There were. Just that there had been also champions for democracy in the Republican Party. Former Supreme Court Justice Bob Orr is a good example of someone who's been pretty consistent on the issues. The maps were horribly gerrymandered. There was litigation at the federal and state level. Justice Allison Riggs, then just Attorney Riggs, took up the U.S. constitutional partisan gerrymandering as wrong case all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. Just endless litigation. Finally, something good happened where 2018, I can't remember the year, I think it was 2018, we retook the North Carolina Supreme Court, or we got a majority on the North Carolina Supreme Court. Or the Supreme Court, our Supreme Court under the state constitution said, no, it's wrong. Partisan gerrymandering is wrong. Forget what the US Supreme Court says about our US Constitution. That's not an issue here, it's our state constitution. And in fact, there was a map redraw. And in fact, we did have fairer maps. And in fact, we did send a fairly evenly split congressional delegation. And in fact, our legislative maps got a lot better. I mean, the process was still messed up. I'm an attorney representing our state legislative key witnesses, Senator Candy Smith from y'all's nearby neck of the woods, and Representative Pricey Harrison. Those court cases remain ongoing, but we just lost the state Supreme Court precedent. So there were real effects, and we did lose something real. Litigation on this is in the tens of millions of dollars at this point, probably pressing up to 100 million. Yes?
Has there been, I've been wondering this the whole time, has there been any kind of demographic study done of those 70,000 votes that they're trying to discount? Because for instance, if we're down, if we count the 60,000 and we're down to less than 10,000 military and overseas votes, logic tells me that the military votes aren't going to favor, Allison Riggs. And they're throwing out what would, in essence, be Republican votes. So I don't know if there's been any, and the same with the 70,000, just anecdotally, everyone that I know that's on the local list for those 70,000 votes are Republicans.
Right. So what we're talking, just when we won the HAVA piece, the in-state resident folks, we went from 68,000, maybe 225 to 250,000, because in one of the cases, the GOP asked for more. We went from that to either 1,500 or 6,000. We're talking about a dramatic reduction when we just looked at military and overseas, because Judge Griffin, really just GOP, only challenged four of the most of military overseas voters voting into 4 of the most populous counties, heavily Democratic counties. And yes, we have very good information on who these folks are. When we do our cure work, we're out there using that information, but we're not out here saying that we're going to ignore the plight of any voter here. This is about democracy. We do have good information to target folks who we think are voters for Riggs. Very good information. is the power of big data within the Democratic Party is very real, and we have actually really great civil society partners who we work closely with, who are not allowed to talk to during the peak of the election cycle, but we are allowed to talk to in it, like after the election, which is fantastic for our ecosystem in North Carolina. 1,500 is just Guilford County. What happened was that Griffin only got the challenge in for overseas voters who were voting to Guilford by the deadline. But of course, he's arguing that the 3 other counties, whatever 4 other counties, he challenged after the deadline that they should count too just because.
The other 96, all those military voters are fine.
They're fine.
Yeah.
So it's worth reminding ourselves, if you are like any North Carolinian who says, hey, like there's something fundamental here that doesn't make sense. Why only one race at issue here?
Right.
And
why not when Justice Newby won by 400 votes?
Right. That doesn't make sense to us. And then why only certain counties? That doesn't make sense to us. You don't need to have gone to law school or be a scholar of due process to feel like, hey, there's something constitutionally effed up here. So I'm going to button things up right now, and then I'm happy to take whatever questions until your chair says basta. We got a break here. All right. So where are we going? I mean, we think. I'll be honest with y'all. When we started the Riggs litigation, we could not have told you fairly that we were more likely than not to prevail. I think things are looking very good right now, and we have simply the best and smartest attorney teams, led by the legal brain of Kat Lawson, who I look forward to working for one day, and Justice Allison Riggs, who before going to the bench, you already had 2 of the best voting rights attorneys in the country, in Anita Earls and Justice Riggs. Better by far than a Mark Elias or any of the folks who are out there talking about how they're the standard bearers for the fight for democracy in the courtroom. There are people who are quieter behind the scenes doing the real blocking and tackling of that work. And you have 2 of them on the bench right now. They're extraordinary jurists and attorneys. Get Justice Earls out here for an Eastern swing, and then tell her that she has to kick up her feet and stay a couple days at the beach and stop working for a moment. Extend the same invitation to Justice Riggs, if you would. So where are we going? Okay, so as I said, we are now in a position to look at 1,700 plus local races this year and tier them out, figure out, and that's in 91 counties, 94 counties, I can't remember. There's a handful of counties that has even year local races, okay? But we are making sure that all of those local races that we have, prioritize those races where we can flip seats, and prioritize those local races where really we should have a Democratic elect and we don't. But we're also making sure that every single county has that sort of race in chief, that local race to look to of the local champion. And then we're making sure beyond that every candidate, whether they're running for partisan or nonpartisan office, y'all know a lot of these town councils are nonpartisan offices. If they're a registered Dem, they get a certain bundle of packages. What are we talking about? We're talking about free website development, free graphic design, the voter file for free. We're one of 2 states that does that. That's our most expensive property by far, our powerful data tool, free professional photography, free training sessions, a lot of free stuff, free targeting, help with field from our Project 100 team. And we're not doing that just to, quote, build a bench. We're doing that because what we know is that it is our local policymakers who are keeping communities safe and working for the common good when the US government is not, and when folks in Jones Street in Raleigh are not. We elect local candidates and support Democrats at the local level as a state Democratic Party for its own sake, and because it matters to the outcomes of the people who live in our state. Number 1. Number 2, though, we are building the 2026 electorate. We are building the 2026 electorate and doing organizing around local races. We are giving people something to vote for. It can be something as simple as, yeah, we have a deferred maintenance list for our public school system that's as long as my arm. And like, it seems like we have school board that is more interested in book bans, et cetera, et cetera. Or it could be any number of things, or it could be a great activist candidate saying, hey, like, listen, to a 287G local law enforcement ICE collab will rip apart our small agrarian community. We'll rip it apart. And I care about the fabric of this community. I'm gonna do everything in my power to make sure that the worst of the predations from a crazy bootlicking ICE are stopped. I mean, it could be any number of things. It's very community dependent, but helping resource locate that local talent is everything. So that's number one, and we're building the 2026 electorate. We're making sure that when we have that US Senate nominee to defeat Tom Tillis, we're making, in what will be the most competitive, most watched US Senate race in the United States. We're gonna have another one right in 2028. It's gonna be a rinse and repeat with Ted Budd, okay? Make sure that he is someone to call in a Martin County and say, hey, I need help connecting with XYZ clergy and getting ABC folks out to vote because the numbers are not looking good looking at past midterm data. We're creating that infrastructure and also creating a community of voters who are activated. At the same time, we'll be doing accountability work, as I said, and already across the state, we have had dozens of accountability canvases and phone banks. Looks like folks going out after some good training with literature that has Elon Musk with a chainsaw on one side and Tom Tillis looking hella creepy on the other, and with some big bullets about what programs are facing the chainsaw, and with a script that is localized to the county that tells, hey, here's actually the impact it would have for, just say, Social Security or VA benefits, or if Medicaid expansion were to go away in this county. Again, the power of having a Project 100 permanent staff to support the county parties and making sure that everything is localized. So people going out to the door, beginning with some frankly negative partisanship, like, can you believe this crazy shit? Or I am out here weirdly on your doorstep on a Saturday because I'm terrified. And then in a way that doesn't center candidates, but centers two people talking and sharing fears and anxiety and maybe anger, you open up a broader conversation that probably also touches hopes, aspirations for a place, probably takes of some of the positive. You also get a very good sense of what issues are driving the person. You code for those issues. You invite the person to join you in participating in some of your work, whether it's direct action, making calls, joining you on the next canvas, more generally getting involved with a very activated local Democratic Party. And we have talked to a person, had a real good conversation with them that is not about voting for a candidate, that is about them, that they'll remember, and that we have coded data for. Data that we'll be able to use when we get into the local races and when we follow up with them. That's what this year looks like. 2020, and I know I'm being long-winded, but I want to lay it out for y'all. 2026, we have objective number one comes up again. Objective number one being retake the state Supreme Court by 2028. We have Anita Earls. We have to get her on the bench. She won a difficult election in 2018, but that was a similar midterm year, if you think about it. She won then. She's fantastic. We think she can win now. And we think that she's going to be one of our strongest candidates for her willingness to get across the state and do an endless amount of campaigning. She has come to love it, which I'm not sure she would say when she started this. And then obviously we have the big US Senate race. I don't know who the nominee is going to be. I don't have any inside information. But I think we'll have choices, and I think that we'll have folks in 26 talent, and we'll have 28 talent that begins to line up and identify itself. meantime, we're going to be working to increase the Democratic minority numbers in our General Assembly so that Josh Stein has a more secure veto, other than the one vote veto he has now. There is a seat in Nash County in Rocky Mount that really we should have won. There's some other low-hanging fruit, so we do think that we can add on. We will be recruiting candidates for all the ledge seats, and we will also be for the first time recruiting county commission candidates, which is the most powerful policy-making position a Democrat can hold in the state of North Carolina, period, full stop. So that's what we're doing. Direct voter contact is everything. I mean, we have helped produce some major rallies, some major town halls. The one with Max Frost and Senator Murphy in Alamance County was standing room only, maxed out at over 1,000 folks. Senator Murphy gifted us $7,000 to make sure that we got it up on TV and digital properties immediately. But that was Chair Clayton. Instead, without Chair Clayton leading the tip of the spear on a comm shop and doing strong messaging about what it means to be a North Carolina Democrat, I don't think we would have gotten that and gotten that attention. Because we were able to produce this event for Senator Murphy and Maxwell Frost, they told us that they would, whether it's the senator in New Jersey or the senator in Vermont or AOC, they're going to make sure that everyone knows directly from them that when they come to North Carolina, they will get an event produced for them that will be packed and sold out wherever they are, which is true. So it's not like we're not about direct action, but we're also, our job as the party is to remind folks that our work is always outside of the rooms, physical and proverbial, that we build. The people who self-select into our rally spaces or town hall spaces are definitionally not the people we then need to go trying to contact. And so making sure our county parties and our state parties a direct voter contact machine all year round, getting outside of those rooms, like at Dare County, I dare say is like pretty good at, is the name of the game. We do that around local candidates, and we do that on accountability. I'm gonna stop talking, but I love, this is my favorite part, getting to see North Carolina, month of April, traveling around for all of the county conventions, but getting to talk to folks and see parts of state in times of year I haven't seen them is great. And I'm very appreciative for your chair for giving me the invitation to come out here. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Jonah. Yes, Bob.
Jonah, you talk a really good game about all this.
Thank you.
Outside the room stuff. Will you come knock doors with us?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's like, take your shifts, that is it. That is all I'm good for. Folks want to engage me in messaging conversation, I say, listen, first tell me how many doors you knocked, and then I'll talk to you about the magic pickup lines. Yeah.
I want to tell you about Jonah and door knocking. At some point this summer, Jonah not only knocks doors everywhere, but he's got a good game on social media while he does it. And I saw a video, I think it was a Sunday, and it was a doctor, a retired OBGYN, who had come to get a sign at headquarters in Raleigh, and Jonah was working on the weekend. And he said, and I guess you talked to him, and he said, Jonah said, do you mind if I film you? And he had a message for women about their choices and how it's all about health, the message you would want to hear. I saw the video. He delivered my first child. And so I texted Jonah. I said, Jonah, can I use your video? And within minutes, I had the packet of information in the format I needed for us to immediately turn around and post it. He's on it 100%, like we all are, right? I don't have anything further for you except for two things. One, Melissa Zahner walked in the back, third vice chair. And two, I know a lot of you think about what's going on nationally too, and I pay a lot of attention. I am noticing a big shift, and I hope you are too. And I would recommend to all of you to go on YouTube, find the Midas Touch Network, and look at the town hall that Ben Meiselas hosted with 4 Democratic governors who answered all our questions in ways that I think are going to be appealing to you all. And so I want you to go home and watch it and then hit me up and tell me what you thought, okay? Join us for the vigil tomorrow. Mary spent all afternoon running around getting permission for us to park for our vigil. She's the superstar of the day.
So where you have to park is not the school. Do not park at the school. Park either at Pirates Key, Wayfinders area, or Central Square, next to the vintage place, because there's an event at the school. And little kids will be running around in front.
We can also park at the Bonnet Street access too. If people want to park at the beach access, walk up, and then if you get off the beach, you're right there.
And you can always park at the Y unofficially, because there was like nobody there. But
Well,
if we
you
have
never know.
official, we are allowed to park in the parking lots.
Awesome. I'll make note of that.
And Dowdy, of course.
And Dowdy if there's room, yeah.
And I'll be with your neighbors in Elizabeth City. And your
Exciting.
The new chair and the new board have organized their own.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy.
Yep.
All right then, thank you all for, oh, Barbara, I should say, does anybody have any announcements that they would like to make?
I do. The birthday fairy is clumping a big one on this man.
Oh my God, happy birthday, Bob. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bob. Happy birthday to you. Any other announcements? All right, thanks for, oh, Melissa.
No, just tomorrow night, and then don't forget about May 6th. If you have RSVP'd but have not donated,
Oh, yeah.
go right ahead and do that because we're filling up.
Yeah, May 6th is when Anderson Clayton will be here. And it's our Be as Dare Dem Sustainer campaign fundraiser kickoff. We do have now 110 signups and only 125 spaces. And so if you have not gone on the Act Blue, which is linked in all the social media, is on the website, to pay for your ticket, please do so. That's $25. Because at some point over the weekend, I'll start to have to probably start a waiting list. All right. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Communist group, right?